Hey, what's up guys? It's Coach JVB here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk about my fertility issues. And the reason why is because I feel like so many women and couples are going through this right now, and I feel like we should be open to talk to one another about it so we don't feel so alone. So last night, unfortunately, I suffered my second miscarriage. And I know these things happen and I know they're very common, but nonetheless, it's still a loss. So I just wanted to share sort of what I've been through so far and hopefully help somebody that is going through the same thing. So back in September, I conceived. My husband and I started to try for our second baby, and I was so surprised that we were pregnant the first try. Because with Jackson, it did take about around 7 or 8 months to conceive Jackson. And my pregnancy was great with him. I wasn't really sick. I did have a lot of the pregnancy symptoms at the beginning, like really sore boobs, fatigue. I was so tired. I did have some nausea, but I was not overly sick. So with the pregnancy that I had in September, I felt very sick. So I was feeling really pregnant. I was feeling nauseous all the time. I had food aversions. Very exhausted too. So I had my scan at the 6.5 week mark. We saw the heartbeat and everything seemed to be good. And I kept feeling more pregnant every day. So at the 12.5 week mark, we went in for another ultrasound and unfortunately found out that the baby had stopped growing at like just shy of 8 weeks. So that was quite a shock because my body was still feeling very pregnant at the time, and I couldn't believe it. Like, I had seen the heartbeat. I had told a lot of people, because just comparing it to my last pregnancy with Jackson, like, I had a great pregnancy and everything seemed to be going the same way, although I did feel a lot more sick this time around. I just felt like I was in the safe zone. But unfortunately, it ended, and a week after, I was scheduled for a DNC, and a week after that, I was scheduled for a DNC, went into the hospital, and it was like a whole day thing. Like, you're pretty much last on the totem pole for any type of surgery when it's a DNC. So I waited in the hospital for 14 hours with like no food. It was crazy. And then I ended up having a natural miscarriage at the hospital. My husband and I were in a room, and I was glad it happened that way because I got to see what was the baby. I mean, it basically looked like mush, but it was closure for me, and I was glad that it happened naturally because I know that your body heals a lot quicker afterwards. But it was also traumatic. I didn't feel like I was ready to try right away, and I was also told by my doctor to give it at least 3 cycles to try again, and I was also working with my naturopath too. So great thing is my period came back like exactly 4 weeks after. Sometimes it can take longer, so I was preparing myself for that, but it came back 4 weeks later. I was ovulating. Everything seemed to be good. I had about 3 periods, normal periods. My cycle is usually every 27 days, and it was very normal. I was ovulating. And we were sort of trying, I wasn't really trying to pay attention to it. I was trying to give myself a break and relax, and I knew that my body needed to heal as well. So I got back into exercising. I was eating really well. And then we found out that I was pregnant again. And that was in February. So that was I had about 3 cycles and I was pregnant. So it was perfect timing. So this past February, I was found out, and the symptoms weren't coming on that strong. Like I was able to compare it to the last pregnancy because it was pretty much shortly after that, right? So my symptoms weren't coming on that strong. I kept on saying, I'm not really feeling this pregnant. And I was, I was overanalyzing everything. I was Googling, and moms, don't Google anything. Oh my God, you'll make yourself insane. And my husband was like, you know what? You're just more like scared this time around. My mom was saying the same thing. You're more scared. Just give yourself a break. So, but I did want to be a little bit more proactive this time around. So I asked to get my blood work done and my HCG levels done, which I never had done before with Jackson or the other pregnancy because my doctor just goes by the first scan. So I requested for my HCG levels and also a full blood work panel just to see if everything was okay. So I got my thyroid checked, I got all my vitamins, and everything came back great. My thyroid level was absolutely normal. The only thing was my iron levels were a little bit lower, not to be too concerned about, but I just took some extra iron from my naturopath, so I started on that right away. My HCG levels, though, they were within range, but they were on the lower end. So in that case, they have to do another HCG test because HCG levels can vary from woman to woman. And since I hadn't had my levels checked before with Jackson or with the previous pregnancy, they couldn't really compare it to anything. So I had to get my levels checked again in a week. So in a week I went in, I got my levels checked again, and they had doubled, which is a good thing, but it wasn't doubling quick enough. They want it to really double every 72 hours, especially when you're really early in your pregnancy. So mine had only doubled once in a week. So that was concerning, and it also validated how I was feeling because I was getting less symptoms. And they weren't coming on, and I was just waiting, and they weren't coming on. So I was scheduled for my first scan, and I sort of knew. I mean, I went into the scan, and they said, yeah, I was 7.5 weeks from my calculations at that point, and the scan had measured me. The baby was showing 5 weeks and 4 days, unfortunately. So there was a sac, there was an egg yolk sac, but there was no embryo. So they wanted me to come in like 10 to 14 days after that, which I thought was a little bit too long because I sort of as a woman, you really know. And I'm really in tune with my body. So I told my husband, Vince, I said, I don't have a good feeling, but everybody was still trying to be really optimistic, and I still had a little bit of hope. But as the week went on, I started cramping, and yesterday, I started cramping really badly and then bleeding, and it resulted in a natural miscarriage. So I'm very sad to have to go through this again, but compared to the last time, it was not as traumatic. I'm glad that it happened at this time because it's still really early, and it wasn't the full 12 weeks. And when you're pregnant for 12 weeks, it's a really long time, right? It's 3 months of your life and you're planning. And so I would have been 8 weeks at this point, but I mean, the baby stopped developing at 5 weeks and 4 days. So had a natural miscarriage. I'm feeling pretty good today. Like, I'm feeling back to myself, and I'm really surprised of how I feel. Obviously sad and a little nervous of what's going on. Like, I want to be a little bit more proactive with the next time, but I physically feel good. So next steps is I'm going to ask my doctor for a referral to a fertility clinic. And I know sometimes they don't refer you until you have 3 miscarriages, but considering my age, I'm 35, and my husband's age, he's 45. I know he looks really good for 45. He's Asian, so you wouldn't even be able to tell, but we're both really, really healthy people. I eat really well, and I exercise, so I'm having a hard time, like, conceptualizing what's going on. Like, that's sort of the hard part for me, especially as a health professional. You know, I feel like you have this, like, you're supposed to be healthy. Like, these things are supposed to be okay. Like, I'm supposed to be able to naturally get pregnant and carry the baby like I did for Jackson. So that disappointment or my body failing me has been challenging. And I'm really trying to get past that and be proactive and get a little bit of help in this area, because family doctors only know so much and they only do so much. So I think once we're in a fertility clinic and we can sort of like rule out some things, I'll feel more confident. And again, the reason why I'm sharing this is because I know, like, even with my clients, how many of us are going through this. And it's so important to know that you're not alone, and that a lot of women are going through this. And I know a lot of women don't even have a child. So, like, for me to have Jackson is a true blessing, and I should be good with that, like, regardless. And I know that it just in my heart, I feel like I want another baby. And it's just a little bit of a hard road to get there, but I know it's going to happen. And I'm staying really, really hopeful, and I want Jackson to have a sibling. I really want that. And, you know, when you go through something like this, as a woman, when you really want something, it's like you're gonna do anything to get there. I feel like for a man, like a husband, to see their wife go through that is maybe more difficult, because like for Vince, he said, if you know you want to stop, I'm good with Jackson. And he's not sure if he wants to see me go through this again. So that's a little bit more difficult, because I want to show him that I'm strong and I can handle this, but at the same time, it's very challenging. But he supports me, and he's going to do what I want to do, and he does want a sibling for Jackson too. So anyways, thank you so much for listening. I'm going to share as much as I can throughout this fertility journey of mine, because I feel like we need to shed light on these topics and not hide. And I'm just so surprised at how many women, the last time when I announced my miscarriage, how many women came out and said they've experienced 1, 2, or 3 miscarriages, and they don't tell anybody, and they've held it in for so long. So I just think it's really important that we as women share and support each other, so we're not alone, and we have each other's backs, and we go through this together. Anyways, I'm gonna rest up today and hopefully get back to the gym, because that's my happy place. It really is. And be proactive about this whole situation. Anyways, thanks for listening. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will be checking in with you. Bye, guys.